Welcome to your sixth lesson in Module 3 of your Professional Diploma in Digital Marketing and SEO. Today we are all about Google search. Today we are going to go through the steps that it takes to properly plan a search campaign. Specifically, we will look at the requirements of a search campaign and learn more about quality score and ad rank. We will also look at bidding and non-keyword targeting, keyword research, and then ad copy preparation. But there is a lot more to Google Ads, and being able to use this platform is honestly one of the most in-demand skill sets in the marketing industry at the moment. So I hope that you're prepared and looking forward to this, and let's go through what we need for a campaign. You will have determined or been told the objective or objectives of your search campaign. Some very common examples would be, of course, sales, leads, perhaps traffic, or return on ad spend. Then you would have decided or been given landing pages to use for your campaign. What is a good idea is, of course, to check the difference in the landing pages between the different devices that you're going to be targeting, just to pick up if you can see any errors or any usability issues. Also, submit a test lead or add to cart or whatever the conversion is that you're going to be tracking for the search campaign. Test that whole process just to make sure that there aren't any problems. Essentially, we need to make it as easy as possible for someone to convert because we are putting money behind. So highlighting any possible errors will help that in the long run. Then a very important step would be to note the keywords that are being used on the landing page. If you didn't have anything to do with the creation of them, then this will help you when it comes to your keyword targeting, as well as your ad creation. And then finally, if you are using UTMs to track performance of the campaign or get more details, create those and keep them in a document so that you always have them handy. Also, very important is to know your campaign dates and whether it's an always on campaign or it's only running for a limited time. Now, when it comes to deciding the length of a campaign, if you have a say in it or you are the one doing it, it should be based, of course, on your objectives, along with whether these objectives fall in your short, your mid, or your long-term goals. It also depends on the value of search for your business and the percentage of marketing spend that is allocated to it. Of course, you're not going to be creating a comprehensive strategy around search campaigns for the year, for example, if you have a very limited budget. Then the next determining factor would be your keywords. And really the question that you need to ask yourself is, are you performing keywords in a competitive space, and do they need to be protected? The thing is that you won't actually receive the same results if you are dropping in and out of the auction all the time. So if your campaign is enabled and then paused and enabled again, etc., if a keyword is valuable to you, then you need to spend time nurturing it. And we'll talk more on that a bit later. But it ties into ad rank and quality score. Then, of course, are the keywords relevant to your brand all the time or only for certain periods? Are you targeting sales keywords now, for example? You won't necessarily want to target those all the time. And then, of course, your budget. This is a big factor, and you can't, let's say, have a budget of $5,000 for the year and then expect meaningful results. Everyone needs to test whether a search campaign can perform for them, but that does mean giving it adequate time, which is at least a month, and also adequate budget. So it might be an initial outlay in the beginning, which is always something that you're unsure of. It is tricky. But at the end of the day, that's what you need to do to see if what happens on search, the tests that you can perform, will give you the performance that you're looking for. Campaigns that have no end date are referred to as always on. Examples of that would be brand campaigns. So you would always be targeting your own keywords and you would remarket to people who visited your site as a result of a brand search. You will know this from SEO, but the best thing to do when it comes to looking for good keywords is to do keyword research and use a tool like the Keyword Planner, which we're going to go through. Likewise, you need a list of keywords that you don't want your ad to appear for, and that list is called your negatives. Then apart from the keyword targeting, you need to know your other targeting, such as your device, the gender, whether you're going to be using remarketing lists and what those are. And then if you have any specific locations, of course, you need those locations. Then you may or may not be responsible for ensuring that your tracking is set up and working correctly. You need to also prep your ad copy, and we'll do more on that later. And then determine your bid strategy as well as your attribution model. But preparation is the first step to successful performance. Now, it seems like there is a lot required for a search campaign, and honestly, there is. It is competitive and it can be expensive. And as much as I would love to say that it's as easy as Google Ads tells us it can take a lot of time and effort. And let's be honest, if we could all make it big with online advertising, then we would all be making it big. Before you decide on the structure of your ad groups, you need to understand the components of quality score and ad rank. So starting with ad rank, your ad rank determines whether your ad is eligible to appear on the search results, and if so, at what position. Now, this is very familiar to SEO. Instead, this is called page rank. But it essentially does the same thing. Your indexing and your crawling determines whether your ad is eligible, and then your overall page rank lets you know at what position it's going to fall. When it comes to looking at your ad position on Google Ads, I must say that the average position metric was taken away, and it's been replaced with something called absolute top impression share. We will look at that in more detail in the next lesson. But essentially, your ad still appears in different positions. You're just not able to see the average position anymore. There are 6 components of ad rank, and in no particular order, they are thresholds. And this is due to the number of advertisers on the network and the need for quality ads. Google implements a minimum threshold that an ad must achieve in order for it to be eligible in the auction. It's a score of 100, and the overall ad rank, including the quality score, is what contributes to this, as well as other things in your account. Things like good practices, good payments, and all of that. So let's say that the threshold for the top spot in an auction is 60. Then any ads below this will be automatically disqualified from that auction. This makes a lot of sense because there aren't just a few advertising vying for those same spots that you are. There are hundreds, possibly thousands. So of course, Google needs a way to kind of bring up the higher quality ads and ensure that the lower quality ads aren't given a chance. Then there is quality score, and this is related to your keywords, your ads, and your landing pages. We'll spend more time on that just now. And then your bid is a factor as well. Your bid is essentially saying to Google that this is the maximum I'm willing to pay per click. And that would have an effect, of course, on where you rank. Then we have something called the impact of ads and the expected impact of your ad. Adding and looking at things like extensions is a consideration when it comes to impact. It's also based on historical and existing performance of your account. So it does take time to accrue, but it should improve over time. Then there is the user context. So from the perspective of your potential client or customer, this is where Google looks at the specific keywords that the person searched for, as well as the device that they searched on, the user's location, and any other factors that Google are aware of from their tracking. And finally, we have competitiveness. Now, some auctions are more competitive than others. Accounts with similar ad ranks will have similar opportunities to win a position in an auction. As with SEO, we can't get too detailed on that because Google actually doesn't specify that information. But if an account has a much higher ad rank than the other competitors in the auction, then of course it's more likely to win. They might just do so at a higher cost because it is more competitive. Moving on to quality score, and this is something that you have more control over. You'll never be able to control all of it, but a higher quality score can decrease CPCs, so it is very important. So your keywords are given a quality score from 1 to 10, and it is given based on 3 factors. There is ad relevance, there is expected CTR, so click-through rate, and then landing page experience. We will go through all of these now, just starting with ad relevance. That is referring to how closely your keyword is related to the ad copy. This would apply to your brand and to your generic keyword targeting, because, for example, you can't include a competitor's brand name in your ads, and there are also some trademarked or copyrighted terms. When you are targeting competitor names, or brands rather, you will naturally see a lower quality score. However, that doesn't mean that it isn't still very valuable to a business. If conversion rate is quite high, for example, volume, then it's still worth targeting. It is also referring to how closely your keywords are related to your landing page. Some businesses go so far as to create different landing page for each of their top performing terms, sometimes changing them quite extensively, but often just changing the keyword on the page. Then expected CTR, what that does is it tries to determine the performance and relevancy of your ads against competitors who appeared with you, as well as your past performance in your account. It looks at things like whether your ad or their ad fared better than yours when it was in the same position for the same search term, or does your ad see a much higher CTR in a higher position? One thing to note though is if you get a below average score, and that would be a status in the account, then it should be a signal for you to change your ad copy. Also, generally, the more competitive an environment is, the more frequently you need to make those ad copy changes. Then we have landing page experience, which is something that may or may not be within your control. But essentially what it needs to be is user-friendly, and we know this already. So how do people experience your landing page? Is the conversion rate good? Is bounce rate low? Is the code clean? Is it mobile friendly? All of those kinds of things are considered when it comes to landing page experience. Of course, as I mentioned, the text needs to be related to the search terms wherever possible, and that is referring to the ad as well as the landing page. If this section isn't paid attention to, then it does impact your quality score, and therefore you would see increased CPCs. Also, a very important decision is which bid strategy are you going to use and how should credit for conversions be assigned. We're not going to spend time on attribution now, but I do want to touch on bidding and just give you a few recommendations, which is based on experience. These bidding options are what I believe to be the safest bet when launching a new campaign in a new account. So completely new, no history in the account. Manual bidding is exactly that. It's completely manual, so no automation is involved. You would set your CPCs and then you control them. So if you want them to change, then you would have to change them yourself. Or you could also set something called eCPC, which is enhanced CPC. And this strategy increases your bid in the auction when Google feels that there is someone more likely to perform your desired conversion. This means that you would achieve either a higher position or you would just appear in the auction and have a higher chance of being seen and clicked on. With eCPC, Google can actually go above the maximum CPC that you set, but it's only in those circumstances where it believes that it can get you that conversion. It can't guarantee it, but with machine learning and all the automation, they have a pretty good idea of interests and different people. One of the main reasons that I recommend these two above others in the beginning is that there is less chance of overspending or spending your budget too quickly or perhaps putting it too highly, as there are constraints to work within when you've set that maximum CPC manually. Some strategies to be wary of would be your maximize conversions and maximize clicks. The reason I say this is because these strategies signal to Google to pay no mind really to cost and to just get you as many clicks or as many conversions as possible. Of course, you have your total budget, so it's not going to go over that, but there's no maximum bid that it's sitting with. For example, something that I have seen in the maximize clicks bid strategy is that it then looks for clicks in the early hours of the morning where everything is a lot cheaper. So you would get a lot more clicks, but the quality of the traffic is generally lower. Many people don't have high intent at those times of the day. With maximize conversions, it could result in you paying for quite an expensive keyword that your budget couldn't consistently allow. Of course, there are ways to manage this effectively, and I'm not saying that these are terrible strategies, not at all, but they just shouldn't be the first choice, especially when you're just starting out. With target CPA, Google tries to give you the results as close as possible to the target that you set. It could be a good strategy to try from the beginning if you are confident in the performance of your offering and your planning. I have seen quite a few problems with this before. For example, if you set too high a target CPA, you could actually be receiving more volume at a lower cost, but due to that target, it's just going a bit crazy. Likewise, if you bid too low, then your campaign won't receive any volume, and in reality, you could actually be achieving a good CPA with a low amount of volume. However, this kind of info really only comes when you've actually spent time in the accounts and you have a bit of experience. Moving on to device, the questions that you need to ask yourself would be, do you want to bid a higher amount on a certain device, for example, mobile? Do you want to exclude a device completely? Do you want to maybe have separate campaigns based on the target device? There are good reasons for doing that, although it's not always necessary. And of course, answers to these questions would come in knowing your target audience and being strategic with your budget. Something very good to be aware of within Google Ads is an unknown category. Now, this is the biggest targeting group in the gender and age categories. So they don't know the gender and they don't know the age of these people. Now, this might only be something that has cropped up for specific businesses, with very specific gender and age targeting. But the solution to that is to try and target differently. So don't target your desired gender or your gender or age, rather exclude the known gender and ages from your targeting. So if you are targeting 24 to 45-year-olds, you would exclude all other known ages, so 18 to 23, etc., and just make sure that you're still including those unknowns, but it's definitely not targeting the known other ages. I know that might be a bit confusing. With gender, for example, let's say that you are a company for women, so you target women only. You would rather exclude the known men from your campaign as opposed to just targeting women and then potentially leaving some unknowns out. If you don't have your remarketing lists set up, then now is the time to set them up and decide where they will be included or excluded in your campaign, even if they aren't ready yet. So audience lists need to have a certain amount of people in them before they can start running. So that's what I mean by going to add those lists in, even if they don't have that amount of people, because that list will then accrue as you're getting more traffic. And then as soon as it's ready, it can start targeting or serving those ads. So there are three main different types of audiences. There's your remarketing, your similar, and your custom audiences. We spoke about these in Module 1. If you have a new account, then you won't yet have access to the similar and custom audiences, but you will have access to remarketing. These audience lists can be added or excluded at the campaign and ad group level, and there are various reasons for this. For example, you might want your entire campaign to target your existing site visitors, or you might only want a specific ad group with certain terms to appear to people who have converted, for example. There are lots of different strategies. Again, it depends on the business and the objectives. As with SEO, keyword research is arguably the most important factor in a search campaign. There are many tools out there, as we know, some that are free and more that aren't, but I'll be using, or rather showing you, the Google Ads Keyword Planner. There is a bit more work to do before we look at that tool, and I want to just cover intent again. People search in many different ways depending on which stage of the cycle that they're in or the funnel that they're in. Add to that the billions of search queries every day and the unique ways in which people use and even understand words in general. There is no way that we can say that everyone who searches in a certain manner or with certain words is in that exact stage of the cycle. But at the very least, there are some common patterns. So by intent, we mean people who intend to buy your product or service. So it is not including more upper funnel objectives like traffic to site or reach. It's very performance focused. So if we take the ADA funnel, for example, it would be the desire and action stages of the funnel, potentially not even the desire phase, just the action. For example, if it's the VAC model, so the more performance focused model, then it would really just be action. Then we have low intent keywords, and these keywords are used for purposes other than making a transaction. They typically include words like what is, what do, how to, although how to could be a high performance keyword in some cases. And then there are other so-called broad keywords. For example, let's say someone is searching for an exact brand name. So they just added that brand name or the website address. Then their intent towards other brands is very low because they're being very specific. They know exactly what they're looking for. But non-brand broad keywords like couches or vacuum cleaners signal that someone is in the very early stages of that buying cycle. And in a performance-focused search campaign, they aren't the kind of terms that we would then be targeting. These terms are what is called navigational or informational queries. Then high intent keywords typically include terms like get a quote, a sale or sales, contact or contact details, buy a book, free delivery, etc. And very specific searches like a 3-seater black suede Madison couch. That is super specific. And there'll be many more examples when going industry or more industry specific, coupled with the unique facets of the business, as well as the strictness of their performance marketing objective. But it is also something that you will really only discover along with your keyword planning and your research. But also, once the campaign is running, you will find additional keywords that you didn't realize would perform quite well and convert. Another question that I have for you, please tell me, true or false, Google Ads will not go over your daily budget. Is it A, true, or B, false? And the answer is B, false. Google will sometimes go over your daily budget, but it will not spend more than your total budget for a campaign, providing that you have calculated it correctly. It is a relatively recent introduction. You never used to be able to set a campaign budget within Google search. You had to set a daily budget, but now you have both options. But if you are using a daily budget and you're checking this daily, you will see that sometimes it will go over that set amount. Again, though, by the time the campaign is finished, it will only have spent the total budget that you set, as long as you didn't make too many changes. If you've made a lot of changes, then you need to be very careful because there is a chance that it will either overspend or underspend. There are, of course, certain searches that you want to avoid completely. These are keywords that you don't want your ads to appear for. You don't want to pay for clicks from those searches. There are some very commonly used words which the average business does not want to appear for, as well as more industry-specific terms. Negatives can be applied at the account, the campaign, and at the ad group level. Some examples of the common terms that are added as negatives We have cancel, cancellation, and refund. Also PDF, template, and news. School, student, exam, and paper. Complaints, issues, and support. And then again, as I mentioned, many others that are industry specific when it comes to so-called negative things. So it's not that you don't want to deal with that query or you just kind of want to ignore it. It's just either that it does not perform for you, it's too expensive, or you just don't want to have to pay for that click because it's not a relevant search query to you. So with a term like cancel, a lot of businesses have a cancellation policy or something like that in place. And some people will want to cancel with that business. And rather than paying for that click, that's something that you let your SEO cover. So it is time to look at those keywords. First up would be your brand. And one of the first questions to ask is whether you're going to be bidding on your own brand terms. Is there perhaps a separate branding objective or relevant campaigns involved as well that focuses on brand? Because if so, then you don't necessarily want to target brand again or overlap with something or another strategy. Also, do you know the current search volume of brand searches? This is something that you would know if you had analytics and Google Search Console in place. Are there competitors bidding on your brand? Because if that's the case, then you need to be there for your brand terms. And then has SEO got brand covered? And one thing I must say here is that PPC and SEO can often clash, especially if you have dedicated landing pages for your PPC efforts. So that's only for paid media, not for organic. And then because what often would happen is Google is seeing all this traffic going to those PPC pages, but it might not be as optimized for SEO as your actual SEO pages. However, Google could start prioritizing that PPC page just because, of course, it does share authority and page rank, but there is also a significant amount of traffic going to those pages. Then we have generic terms, and by generic, I mean that these are the almost obvious keywords that someone would search to find your service or product. So here you need to try and put yourself in the customer's shoes. If you have done SEO keyword research or research for content development, then this or those areas would be something to look at as well for PPC. Then with those, you need to list as many variations as you can think of. As an example, if we look at dentist near me, then another variation of that is where is the nearest dentist, and another one is where is the nearest dentist to me. List those all out, as many as you can think of, and then put it in a separate document for keeping it for later. Then you have your competitors, and really your budget and your offering compared to these competitors is what really should determine whether you will bid on competitor brand terms in search. As I said before, people searching brand terms are showing high intent for the brand that they're searching for, not for others. And you can get yourself into a bit of a brand bidding war where your competitor pushes up your brand CPC as you push up theirs. And then if that's the case, the value of those results should be proportionate to the increase in costs that you're seeing. But many big brands do adopt a strategy around competitor terms, as performance can be very good in some verticals. If you want to spy on your competitors, so to speak, you should have a look at something called incognito mode, which is a type of browser in Chrome. And why I suggest this is because it doesn't save your search history or your website cookies and your data. So it essentially sees you as a blank slate. There is no record of your specific ad preferences that affect your search history and the search results that you see. And this really means a less filtered search results page based on your queries. Let's say, for example, that you're not actually the target market of your brand and its competitors. If you're searching with your personal profile, you might not see their ads because they aren't targeting you. However, if you're in incognito mode, then you can see those competitor ads and view the ad copy. This is also where that site that I mentioned before, isearchfrom.com, might come in handy. You could also search non-branded terms, so generic terms, and and see what pops up in the top 3 positions. They might not actually be direct competitors, so it's worth seeing those results, having a bit of a look at who those brands are, what those brands are, and then determining whether you need to target them or not. It's just a nice way to kind of get a feel for the landscape that you're going to be playing in. So once you have built or started to build up your list, it is time to move over to the Keyword Planner. And this is a free tool from Google that allows you to see keyword search volumes. With those search volumes, you can also see the average CPC, the level of competition, and more. And you can also use it to find additional keyword ideas. So if you've only been able to come up with a few before reaching this tool, that's not an issue at all. It is available under the Tools and Settings tab within Google Ads, and there are 2 ways to see information on your keywords. There's the Suggestion tool and the Planner. The difference between the 2 is that the Suggestion tool gives you additional keyword ideas, and the Planner only gives you data on the keywords that you've already inserted, so you won't get new ideas. Also, the Keyword Planner allows you to create ad groups and therefore campaigns, while the Suggestions tool doesn't. So once in the tool, you would go to Discover New Keywords, and you can either enter keywords, so this is where you'd put all the keywords that you've listed from your search. I know it might look like that you have to put them in one by one, but you don't. You can just copy paste them. You could also start with a website URL. And what is nice about this, again, is that you don't even have to include your own URL. You could put competitors in there or just similar services or products, but in a different market entirely. You can try a different location. It's really up to you. So once you've done that, you'll see a bar graph, which represents the number of searches. So the total number is the blue bar, and then the searches that came from mobile, just because it does focus on mobile, that is the red bar. And you can see that it is significant. It does take up most of the traffic. I put in some keywords around mobile spas just to see what came up. So as you can see, the keywords are below the bar graph. I just entered 5 and it's giving me different stats, which we'll go into now. And then below that, there should be a long list of keywords. You could just see right at the bottom, it says keyword ideas. You can see the average number of searches. This is changing, unfortunately, to a range, so you don't get to see an exact number of monthly searches. It is still very useful. You can also see the competition, which ranges from low to high. And then you can also see a suggested top of page bid in the low range, so what you would need to almost as a minimum put to reach the top of the page. And then the high range, so there is quite a difference there. It does say top of the page, but it's not just referring to the first position here. It's referring to any of the 3 or 4 ads that appear at the top of the search results. When it comes to the competition, just because a keyword says that it is a low or has low competition, it doesn't mean that it will have a tiny CPC, at least not at this point. I would really only be looking at search volumes here to consider what you need to be adding, not necessarily the bids or even the competition with this tool. So this is just a screenshot of some keyword ideas that came up. From here, you can actually select these all and you can download them into an Excel, or you can create a campaign from here. So this forecast here that you're looking at is saying that for these 6 keywords, which is now around digital marketing, I could expect to get 490 clicks and 17,000 impressions for €300 and an average position of 3.3. I could add conversion metrics there if I wanted to. Again, though, it is an estimate, and I could only add those conversion columns if I'd actually added a goal in the account and it was tracking that. You can also add your negative keywords here. So if you're getting ready to create that campaign, have those in place from the beginning. And then the historical metrics, which just is the tab to the right, it gives you the same information, and this is where you could create the campaign as well. So the number of keywords that you should have in your campaign, of course, depends on your budget. Now, the historical data and the forecasts are useful, don't get me wrong, but they are not an accurate portrayal of exactly how things will turn out. However, if you have a low budget, you can't start off with hundreds of keywords in your account. Maybe you can only have 20, and that is absolutely fine, but then they should be the best 20. You're going to be guessing at first if you haven't got any data or anything to back that up. But again, that is fine. That's how we know whether the things are going to work or not. And it is also within where analysis and optimization come in later. If there are keywords in your list that have a much higher CPC than others, then you should evaluate whether you need that keyword. If competition is also high, then there might be a better keyword for you. Also, look at keywords that are potentially too broad or where the intent is not as relevant as other keywords in your list. We will go through some simple examples looking back at the keyword planner information. For example, here I am a digital marketing consultant and I'm looking to expand my client base. The top keyword here, digital marketing, even though it is somewhat relevant, we can see that the cost is quite high and the average monthly searches is also very high. So for my budget, to be honest, no matter what budget I have, it's going to be blown by this keyword alone because it is so broad. Looking at the keywords below this, so digital marketing consultant, strategist, etc., there is a lower volume. And okay, the CPCs still look pretty high, but it is more targeted than the top digital marketing keyword. Here I am a massage and nail salon business owner. And in this example, I would start by cutting out these keywords here. They are too broad. Someone could be looking up how to do this themselves. They could be looking for images, etc. Competition, although I said not to look at it, but just for this example, competition is also very high and it's likely retail based, and that is hugely competitive. So due to that retail or e-commerce aspect, as a small business owner or specifically a massage and nail salon business, these are not the keywords that I need to be targeting. I need to go longer tail. So assuming that you have all of your keywords, you need to start looking at your ad copy. You need to create compelling and clear ad copy that draws attention and clicks. I know it's not as easy as it sounds. You could also have an amazing website and product, but if your ads aren't up to scratch, then no one, of course, gets to see you. Let us recap the types of ads that are available with a search campaign. We have the normal text ad, the responsive text ad, which automatically rotates and determines which ads or which combinations are performing best. And then finally, there is the call only ad, which is for mobile. Now, each headline must not be more than 30 characters, including spaces, and the descriptions should not be more than 90 characters. And just remember that this is for search only. There are many other ad types for other campaigns. Google recommends that the number of ads that you should have in your ad groups are at least 3 ads. I would recommend having 2 text ads and 1 responsive ad at least, unless, of course, you are driving a very specific message or running a test. You also need to remember and adhere to the ad policies. So we have, you mustn't include any gimmicky words or characters. No capitals, so capitalized words, and no exclamations are allowed in headlines. You can only have 1 exclamation in the descriptions. So even if you have 3 descriptions, you can have an exclamation in just 1 of them. Of course, you also need to avoid false claims. If you're going to say something like, you are the best company in the world, then you actually need to be able to prove that. That can get you into trouble if someone reports your ads, for example. And then finally, prejudice and personal targeting is of course not allowed at all. And that really goes without saying for any advertising channel. Then you need to list your USPs, your unique selling propositions. You need to take a unique quality and explain how it will benefit your customers. Now, there's a wide range of USPs and what they can involve, from very clever taglines to just explaining a service really well. It's important to use these in your ads and try different wording for the same thing. You could also use some as extensions, and we'll understand what that means better in lesson 7 and 8. But if we just go through a few simple examples just to show you the range of what a USP can be, we have here We're Number 2, We Try Harder by Avis. And that is completely owning the fact that they aren't the number 1 car company, they are the second best. But as a result of them being second best, they try harder than the winner. And that might not necessarily be true, but it is very clever and it does make it memorable. Then there is A Diamond is Forever, and that has been around for decades by De Beers, and it completely changed the diamond industry. Sales of diamond rings for wedding rings or anniversaries skyrocketed after this campaign from De Beers. It is also saying that a diamond is harder and stronger than any other stone, so it is forever. You can also have something like get a quote in less than 2 minutes. I know it doesn't sound as romantic as the previous two, but this is a very good, quick, clear example. People value their time, and so when it comes to a quote or a form submission, they can often take time, and there are lots of questions to answer. So if there's a short, simple process, then highlighting that is something that is going to put you above the rest. Then there is 100% owned and operated by women. It is appealing to quite a specific target, but that really is the point. And it can be very powerful. People who are wanting to support women, for example, would find that appealing. Even saying complete satisfaction or your money back could be effective. I know it's not necessarily unique, but if you find ways to say that in different ways, then it can be very, very beneficial, especially if customers realize that if they aren't happy with something, then they can just return it for a refund or replace it, etc. That makes a difference. Then there is your CTAs, your call to actions, and these are different to your USPs. You need to tell your potential customers what they are going to do or what you want them to do after clicking your ad. For example, you could say shop now. You could also say contact us, request a quote, or get your free trial. I mean, there are many, many different options, but these are quite commonly used ones. You should try and word these in different ways. And you could also maybe try going with a harder sell, like shop online versus a softer one like browse our collection, and see which gets the better results. Then some notes about descriptions and headlines. It's important to know that the third headline does not always appear in a text ad. So make sure that you're not putting any critical information there because it might just not appear. And then when it comes to responsive headlines and descriptions, because they're being automatically rotated based on the best performance, it is important to make sure that all of the different headlines and descriptions do work together, just to make it more accurate. When it comes to your URLs, they must be consistent. And what I mean by that is that you can't have different URLs in the same ad group, and you shouldn't have a URL on the keyword level as well as the ad group level. And you'll see what I mean by that in the next few lessons. It really just makes it easier for optimization and reporting, less room for human error. If your URL can contain the main keyword, then that would be fantastic, just as it is for SEO. It might help your ranking and your quality score. And then again, very important, add those URLs at ad level, not at keyword level. The keyword level URL will override the ad level URL. So if they are different and for some reason you've forgotten that you did this or you've labeled it, believe me, I've seen it a few times, then you're actually going to be sending people to a different URL to the one that you think you are. I will be showing you an ad copy template in the next lesson. It's similar to the one I showed you when we were building a Facebook campaign, but it's a bit more built out. It's more comprehensive. But there is no right or wrong way to keep track of or to create these ads. And you might also be using a PPC tool, whether it's free or automated. I think that is enough information for today. Well done for getting here. Congratulations, you have now completed 6 lessons of 8 in your third module of this diploma. Well done, everybody. I will see you very soon. Bye.